From the Apopka Studios in Oklahoma City, you are watching The Press Row. I'm Jenni Carlson, and no Barry Trammell in studio this week. He's actually already in Arizona, where the Oklahoma State Cowboys will play Arizona on Saturday. Barry, let's talk about some football games in the We Pick'em segment. We've got you on the phone. Let's get right to it. First game, big game involving a Big 12 team. Miami goes to Kansas State. Who you got in this one, Barry?
Well, I got Kansas State, but I think it's a great game. You know, last year, K-State really ignited its season. Went down there and had a couple of goal line stands against Miami, pulled out the win, went on to finish second in the Big 12. I saw Miami at Boston College last week. I watched that game. Miami's pretty good. I was very impressed. It's going to be tough, but I think K-State pulls it out.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Wildcats on this one as well. Last year, I thought this was a really up-in-the-air sort of game. This year, I'm really confident in K-State being able to win and win, you know, pretty easily. Not maybe, you know, 2 or 3 touchdowns, but I think they're the superior team to Miami. I love Colin Klein. He obviously brings, you know, not only great play but great leadership to that Kansas State offense. It was a classic of a game last year. I think this year it's a little bit more of an easier Kansas State victory, but really a fun game between these two programs. All right, Barry, another game, this one involving a former Big 12 team, now SEC. They get their opener. Texas A&M hosts Florida. Barry, who you got in this game?
Well, can I say neither? I don't like either team.
You can say neither, but you got to pick.
Florida looked bad last week, but Texas A&M starting a redshirt freshman quarterback didn't get to play last week because its game was postponed by weather. I don't like where this A&M program is. Florida's struggling, though, too, so I'm going to take Florida because they have a game under their belt. I like Will Muschamp as a coach, but I don't like either one of these teams.
Well, I'm glad you figured out a pick. I'm going to go with Texas A&M in this game. And yeah, I know there are some issues for the Aggies, but obviously emotions will be running high. SEC opener, they get it at home. Obviously a great home environment at Kyle Field. Florida really struggled last week. I even heard that some of the Boo Birds were out in Gainesville during that game. So Florida clearly has some issues. They have played a game unlike Texas A&M, but I do think the home crowd and that home emotion is going to play into it. I'm going with the Aggies. All right, Barry, another SEC game involving a former Big 12 team. This one, Georgia, they also are on the road at Missouri. Tigers get to play their SEC opener at home. Who do you like in this one, Barry?
Well, you know what? I'm going to take Missouri, but I like both teams. I think this game goes a long way to determining who wins the SEC East. I actually think Missouri's going to fare fairly well in the SEC, at least for a while. The SEC East is not strong. I think Missouri will fit in nicely. Georgia is going on the road. I like Georgia. I think they've got a good squad, but you know, James Franklin in Missouri, I think gets it done and pulls the minor upset.
Well, I'm going to go with Georgia. Obviously, the road team, it's going to be a struggle for the Bulldogs, and clearly Mark Richt under the microscope, but he has been for years, and here he is again still sort of fighting for his coaching life. But I think Georgia's the better team. I do think this is going to be a really fun matchup to see just how Missouri stacks up, because Georgia's a team that if Missouri's hoping to finish well in the SEC this year or any year, Georgia's the kind of program you want to be close to. I mean, there's obviously going to be programs ahead of Missouri right now, but Georgia's kind of been treading water a lot these last few years, and if Missouri wants to establish itself, this is a huge game for the Tigers, especially at home. But I like Georgia. I just think they've got, you know, they'll have the size, they'll have that speed on defense. I think it's going to be a little bit of an eye-opener for Missouri, and I like Georgia to win in Columbia. All right, Barry, the 2 games involving the local teams. Let's start out with the earlier game. Florida A&M comes to Oklahoma. I have to think you like the Sooners in this one, but what about this game, Barry?
Well, I think Florida A&M is better than Savannah State. Does that count for anything?
It should be a little bit better game, right?
I mean, as you wrote about, the Florida A&M band is not coming, so there's, you know, that ends all interest in this game. I think it's a no-win situation for the Sooners. If they look bad again, then I think the house is on fire. If they look good, who cares? It came against an overmatched program. You know, 1AA teams only get 63 scholarships. This is not just a class where you just decide where you're going to play. All kinds of limitations. The talent level is huge. The talent discrepancy is huge. I just think the Sooners can't look good in this one. If they don't win big, there's massive cause for concern.
Yeah, and I agree with you there. I think Oklahoma's got a lot. They're going to win, but they've got so many questions coming out of that opener at UTEP. How do they correct those problems? There are obviously some areas where they're not going to be hugely better right away. Talk about the defensive line. You've still got Casey Walker missing. You've still got Stacey McGee suspended. So clearly there are going to be some areas where you aren't going to see improvement. But there are some areas where you better start to see some improvement. Offensive line, I think they really need to dominate. I think they need to be a lot better on Saturday against Florida A&M. There's some areas that people are going to be watching, and they better be better because, Barry, as you say, Florida A&M a step down. I think a lot of people will be curious to see how some of those specific areas come around from week 1 to week 2. All right, lastly, a very good game in the desert, Barry, the matchup between OSU and Arizona. Who are you going to pick in this game?
Well, I'm going to take OSU, clearly the better team. But it's an interesting game because Rich Rodriguez is new at Arizona. His offense is always powerful, and I think he's got a quarterback that runs that Rich Rod offense pretty well. So I think Arizona will score some. With Wes Lunt playing his first real game, you don't know exactly how the OSU offense will respond. And here's what's interesting to me. Last year in Stillwater, home crowd, Justin Blackman, Brandon Whedon, OSU won 37-14. It wasn't like they won 61-6. So, man, I think it's going to be a competitive game. I'm going to take the Cowboys probably in the 10-point range.
Yeah, I'm going OSU in this game as well, Barry. I do like them to win. And you know what? I think the OSU defense is going to come to play in this game. You mentioned Arizona's offense under Rich Rod, obviously a much more up-tempo. They got the spread going. But OSU's defense, many seasoned veteran players that have been in situations like this. They've faced spread offenses in the Big 12. You know, obviously they've given up yards in past years, so this is going to be a test. Can they hold Arizona a little bit more in check? I think they will. I think this secondary, you look at who they've got in the secondary, who they've got at linebacker, guys that have been through it, and they know how to play. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of attention and pressure on Wes Lunt, but I think that OSU defense will be able to eliminate it, and I do think the Cowboys pick up a nice victory on the road. Hey, be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere at newsok.com and every day in the Oklahoman.